Dark side, light this bitch up.
All right, YouTube, we got our drop spindles in. They basically just go back the same way you took them off. This goes to your tie rod, this goes to your lower control arm, and this goes to your upper control arm. You just bolt it back up, and then you put your caliper back on. Make sure that you grease this part before you put your rotor back on. That way it gets nice and smooth, so it'll spin freely and easy. And then make sure when you tighten your rotor up that you don't tighten it too tight where it's supposed to have just a little bit of drag on it. So I will go ahead and get these back together, and then we'll be back. When you put them back, you make sure you put your cotter pins back in. I had to get new ones because my old ones were so rusty. Now we'll grease this line up so we can go ahead and put our rotor back on. So let me go grab some grease and we'll be back. Tight it. It's kind of hard to spin, so you just want a little bit of drag. I think that should be good. So now we just stick our cotter pin in, put our caliper on, put our wheel back on, and this side is done. So I'll go ahead and we also got to put our shock back on. I'll go ahead and get that done, and then we'll be back. All right, YouTube, we got the front bags in. The truck is basically all the way on the ground. It's just sitting on dolly so I can push it around because it doesn't have any air in it just yet. So as you can see, this is the reason I cut this bump stop out, is because it gives you some room to go around the bag itself. That way you don't have to worry about your bag hitting this thing. I did the same thing on the other side. So it's in. We got our shock in back there. Got all our collar pins and everything else in. So this is basically what the truck will look like when it's aired down. So next, as we start working our way back from the front to the back, is the compressor. Now there's a couple of ways to hook your compressor up. I chose to use this relay right here, and this relay basically comes from Bayer, and basically you can use this or you can use the 4-prong relay. I chose to use this one just because in the event that I decide to add another compressor, this is already made to run 2 compressors. Only thing I have to do is just hook my second compressor wire here and run it to the compressor, and we're done. So this bottom wire down here, this goes to our battery, which goes to our circuit breaker or a fuse. This is an 80 amp circuit breaker, or you can use an 80 amp fuse, whatever you choose. And then we have our wire that's gonna go over here to our positive battery. This top post right here is what goes down to your compressor. So that's where this red wire is gonna go down and connect to our compressor. This left side right here is our ground. So we're just gonna take this and run it to a ground somewhere on the frame, or either somewhere over here to our battery. But we're probably just gonna run it up to someplace like this right here. Because this is a nice spot for our ground. And then this piece right here, this right post will go down to our pressure sensor switch. And then from our pressure sensor switch, it'll go to a keyed source. So our keyed source is going to be our distribution block, which is right there, that comes on when I turn the key on. And that way the compressor is not running all the time and giving you problems, you know, just draining your battery. So I'll continue wiring this up, and then when I get finished, I'll show you what it looks like. But I will put a drawing right here. To show you what this looks like. So I know it's kind of hard when somebody's trying to explain it, but I'll put a picture up there. That way you can see what this looks like. You can see what the 4-prong looks like, and we'll go from there. This is the 4-prong relay that came with the kit. So I opted not to use this one. Here's the part number. As you can see, it has the 4 prongs. And it's a 40 amp relay. So and again, I'll put the picture up to show you how to connect this if you choose to use this one. YouTube, we have our circuit breaker that goes down to our relay, which is right here. So again, this back wire goes to our battery and our circuit breaker right here. This front wire goes down to our compressor and connects in with this. This wire right here, this post, comes over here and it goes to our ground, which is right there. And then this post on the left goes down, and this goes to our pressure switch. And then this pink wire connects to our block over there, distribution block for ignition on. So when you turn your key on, it'll operate the compressor. And then if we come down here, this is where we have the compressor mounted. It's on a bracket. It's mounted to the frame. The wires are connected. They're in this flex loom right here. And then here's where the compressor goes into the tank. And then the line that goes from the tank will go to our switches. Is already inside the cab. And I just basically use the hole that the fuel used to go through to put the wire through. And I may end up running the bag that comes from this side over here through that same hole just to save some line. And then back here, it's a little hard to see. Hang on, let me get some light. Here we have our neutral safety switch. We have a pressure gauge, so we can tell how much air is in our tank. And then we have a air chuck, just in case we need to hook up something where we need to put air in our tires or whatever the case may be. So that's pretty much how it's wired up. And then we have our bracket. Oh, hang on. These are just L brackets I got from Home Depot. They're just mounted to the frame. And then they just come out here, and then our tank is mounted to this. So that's how I installed mine, because I didn't want to cut anything or put anything inside the bed. I tried to keep everything underneath, and it doesn't interfere with where the tire is, because the tire is actually right here. So, and it's right there, right there. So still got a good 2 or 3 feet between the two. So now we just have to go ahead and do the rear bags. Here's a moment of truth. It's running, but here, coming out of here, because this is our supply hose, so it would never fill up because it has no air. So everything works. We didn't burn the truck down, so I think we're good to go. All right, YouTube, we got our pattern drawn on. So basically all we gotta do is cut on the inside of the line. And you want it a little bit smaller than the actual piece because you want it to fit nice and snug. So basically we'll just cut inside the line where the two holes are, and then if we need to, you know, extend it out, we can. And it's better to start small than to go big. And I'll show you how I got the pattern. So what I did is I just set it on a piece of cardboard just like this. Traced around it, and then I cut it out, and then I marked my holes on the inside. And then I got a piece of cardboard that has a piece that flips up like this. That way I can flip this up and I can trace it from the inside down here to get this pattern out, and then I just cut this pattern out. And then I took this over to the truck and I bolted it up, and then I flipped this up on the side of the frame. I traced it out, and that's how we got our pattern done. So hopefully this will work out for you guys. I'm sure somebody knows an easier way to do this, but this is the easiest way that I found, especially when you're doing this stuff by yourself. So so just let me know in the comments if you know an easier way to get this pattern onto your frame, but this is the easiest way I know. So let's get it cut out. As you can see, we have our design cut out, our pattern. I drilled holes in the corners right there and right there, because a rounded corner is a lot sturdier than if I made a sharp, you know, cut here and a cut here. It will create weakness in the joint. So doing it this way, all I do is just cut up to the hole here, cut across the hole there, and then cut down here. I did put a string down from the center, and it goes to the center of the axle right here. So when you jack it all the way up, it's right in the center, and it should be in the center of this notch. So let's get to cutting. We got our C-notch in. We got one bolt holding it up front. We got a clamp holding it in place in the back. It's all the way flush to where we need it. We'll go ahead, and I use a 3/8 bit to just mark our holes inside. We'll come back, drill those out, and then we'll use a 7/16 drill bit, because that's what size the bolts are, and get those going. And then we'll get it bolted up, and I'll be back. We got all our bolts in, got everything bolted up. So now we'll put our bag in, and it just, let's see, sits up here like this. Wash it off. So I'll go through this hole that's right here, and it'll go through that hole that's right there. Get this up to the hole. Mounted, we used our reach wrench to get inside here. It's a 3/4 inch. Next, you run your bolt up through the bottom down here, It'll come up through this plate like that, and then it'll screw into the bottom of our bag. So we'll have to lift this up so it's closer to the bag, and then I'll do that and we'll be back. All right, YouTube, we got everything back together. We got our shock in. As you can see, got a shock down there. Got it hooked back up there. I went ahead and I painted this C-notch black just to help prevent some rust in the future because it was bare metal. We did not use the pan-in bar or pan-hard bar just because we have an adjustable one in here already and it was already set, so no sense in reinventing the wheel. So the only thing we got left to do now is put our drum back on, and then I will go and do the other side. I won't bore y'all with that. It'll be the same thing. We'll take these 4 rivets out at the bottom. We'll take and drill these 2 holes up top. This was the harder side to do just because of this pan-hard bar right here. So I will go ahead and get the other side done, and then I'll show you that and we'll be back. Make sure you're wearing your eye and hearing protection. But we got the notch cut out on the passenger side. We got our holes drilled here, here, here underneath. The difference between this side and the passenger side is there's 2 rivets back here. On that side where the pan-hand bar or pan-hard bar goes, you have to take those out. This side you don't. You actually have to drill 2 holes. So that's really the only difference that I've seen so far between this side and this side. So I'll use my clamps to get this thing clamped back up in place. We'll get it bolted together. As always, make sure you check your lines on the other side of your frame, because you never know what's back there. Like I did, and I cut my line, so I had to splice it back together. But, you know, it is what it is. And then we'll just go in there later on and we'll fix that and just get a whole new line and run it all the way. This is where I have my tank mounted, and under the passenger door is where I have my compressor mounted. Here I have a gauge to let me know how much air is in my tank. We also have a quick disconnect for the air hose, just in case we need to air up some tires or run a small power tool or something like that. And then here's our pressure sensor switch that goes up to the front. These are the brackets that I bought from Home Depot, and we'll get those cut off so they're not sticking out, and cut them right out the edge of the tank. So I will go ahead and tighten up this shock and go from there, and we'll get this bolted in, and then we'll be back and we'll be ready to run some lines into the cab. And then after we run them into the cab, we should be able to hook our hose up and get this thing fired up. So I'll get this bolted up and we'll be back. Passenger side rear bag in. The bolt is a little difficult to get to because it's behind this bracket right here, but it's up inside of here. I don't really want to see that. See if I'll put some light up in there for you real quick. Not sure if y'all can see that bolt up that's up in there, but anyway, there's a bolt right there in the middle. That bolt is where the bag bolts to, so just FYI. We routed all of our lines down the frame on that side too, and then we crossed over right there in the middle. Right there, we crossed over, and then we're going through the hole that the fuel line used to go to. So let me go over there real quick. All right, YouTube, so right here is where the fuel line used to come through. Let me get some light. All right, this is where all of our lines come through. We have the driver's rear that comes this way. We have the passenger rear that comes this way. We have the one from the tank that comes this way. And then we also have the front right passenger side that comes in here. It was just easier in trying to drill holes inside of the cab or something like that. So I just use an existing hole that had an existing grommet in it, and it seems to work out well. So what we will do is we will put some of that silver stuff that we used on our transmission lines and some of our wires that's up near our headers. We'll do the same thing back here because these are nylon plastic, so we don't want these to melt. So we'll get these wrapped up, and hopefully that will protect them and keep us safe and driving down the road. And I'll show you what we're going to do with the driver's front. There's a grommet already in there that I have a wire coming through. We're just going to push the hose through there and call it good, and then we'll be able to hook our gauges up. We got our lines in. We came through our fuel line hose, or hole that was in the back of the cab where the fuel line used to go through, and we brought our lines up. We labeled them, so you have your front rear, or your front right, your left rear, your supply. This one is your right rear, and then this one down here is your left front. So the reason I labeled these is so I know which one is which. So when we plug them up to our gauges, as you can see, it has a orange or a yellow and a white needle. So we want to make sure that both of our fronts are white or either yellow, which means either they have to go one here, one here. So they'll go into these lines right here. And these have already, all you do is push them in and connect them and you're good to go. So in order to make sure that they're either, these two would be yellow or white, and then these two would be yellow or white. So we're going to make our front these two right here, and then we're going to make our rear these two right here on the outside. So it's just a matter of pushing these in, and then this right here is where your supply goes. We'll push that in, and these gauges will be good to go. Then we'll be able to turn this thing on and let it air up and see if it holds some air. Then we'll go back and we'll check everything to make sure it's not leaking. So I'll go ahead and get this wired up, which should be pretty easy. We do got to check and see which one of these are hot and ground for our buttons to light up, our paddles. So I'll figure that out, and then we'll get our gauges hooked up. So when we turn our lights on, the gauges come on, so on and so forth. So I'll be right back. All right, YouTube, we're finally done. All the bags are installed, all the brackets, the compressor, the lines, everything else. One thing I did go back and do is I went back and I cut out the bump stops. As you can see right there, there used to be a bump stop. So I cut it completely out because I didn't want no issues with it rubbing against the bag or anything like that. So we are good to go there. As far as the rear goes, it's the same. We we put our C-notch in, we put our brackets in, put our ran our lines, everything else. As you can see here, we did not use the manual valves. I had some issues with them leaking around the back here, around these posts right here. So I decided not to use these, and I was able to find some more valves on Facebook Marketplace. Not the best place to get them, but it is what it is. So with our bags, we went with the electronic solenoid for our valves. This right here is the muffler. This is your inlet right here, this line right here. Same thing on the bottom. Then you have all of your, normally this is where you would run lines out to your gauges. So instead of having manual gauges, we have electronic gauges, which are digital, and I'll show you those in a second. And this is where we decided to mount the manifold, keep it dry out of the weather. It's super quiet. So I'll take you around and I'll show you the gauges. We're back inside the truck, so I'll show you. This is the gauge itself. As you can see, when it's off, it looks like the rest of our gauges is all black. And then when you turn it on, it actually lights up red, just like the rest of our gauges. So up top, you have your tank pressure. Here you have your left right, or your left front, your right front, your left rear, your right rear. So, and of course these are going to fluctuate when you put stuff in the bed, because the bag and the weight and all that good stuff is going to make them off a little bit, but for the most part they are good to go. We also have our 9 switch for the valves. So you have your front left, both, front right, you have your whole left side, front and rear. Middle is everything up and down. This one over here is your right front, right rear. And then at the bottom you have your left rear, both bags in the back, and then your right rear. So basically how it works. So I'll put you outside so you can see what this thing looks like when it drops. And that is basically the way she looks when she's all the way aired out, sitting right on top of the tires. Now we can take the fender well out and make it sit a little bit lower, but I don't think we need to go that far. Plus the fender liner helps keep stuff inside the engine bay dry. This is what the rear looks like when it's all the way aired out. One thing we did do is we did go in here, it's kind of hard to see, but we put 2-inch drop blocks in here just to get it to sit a little bit lower, because before it was like right up here was where it was sitting. So this piece was actually like right here, so it was 2 inches higher. So I think it tucks in there well, looks good. So as always, hit that bell, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and we'll be on to the next project. It's been about 18 years since I last had a truck that was bagged, so it's been a while. I do miss it. It's still a pain in the butt when you get a leak and you got to try to hunt down the leak. But for the most part, overall, can't beat it. Love the stance, love the way it sits. We're sitting on 22s, so can't beat that. We went from our 15s over here to our 22s. Again, Facebook Marketplace, $300-400, done deal. So bag is done, that's done. We'll be back on Flash next. We also got to do our D150 outside. So yeah, lots of projects. Till next time, peace.